Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something right now. Sometimes in life, people will reject you because they don't see your value, not because it's not there, but because they just ain't ready to appreciate it. A man will walk away from you like you don't mean a thing. And then months later, he can't sleep at night thinking about what he let go. You know, there's something powerful about silence, something magnetic about a woman who chooses not to fight for attention, who doesn't beg for love, who doesn't chase validation from the man who rejected her. See, when you walk away from someone quietly, not with drama, not with bitterness, but with grace, that's when you become unforgettable. That's when your value hits him like a freight train he never saw coming. And most men don't realize what they had until it's not answering their calls anymore. It's the moment you stop trying, stop texting, stop asking questions, that he finally starts asking his own, why did I let her go? What was I thinking? At first, when a man rejects you, he thinks he's in control. He believes he made the final decision. He assumes you'll linger around, hoping, waiting, checking your phone at midnight. He's betting on your weakness, not your strength. But when you walk away in silence, without a fight, without trying to prove your worth, that silence becomes deafening. That's when he starts to notice everything he took for granted. He remembers the way you supported him when no one else did, the way you believed in him, encouraged him, stood by his side even when he didn't deserve it. He begins to remember the small things, the way you smiled at him, the way you laugh at his dumb jokes, the way you brought peace into his life without asking for anything in return. Now he's sitting in the quiet that you left behind, and it's messing with his head. You see, men don't always think in the moment. A lot of times they realize what they lost when it's already walking away in heels, looking better than ever, focused, healed, and unavailable. Your silence becomes the mirror that reflects his mistakes. It forces him to sit with the truth that he let go of a woman who had real love in her heart, a woman who didn't need him, but chose him. And now that the choice is no longer on the table, he's stuck wondering why he was foolish enough to reject someone who only ever wanted to love him right. And while he's remembering, you're transforming. You've stopped trying to make someone see your value. You've learned how to pour that love you were giving him back into yourself. You've elevated. You've glowed up. You've become unavailable to the games, the empty promises, the half loves. And here's the crazy part. Your silence starts to speak louder than anything you ever said. It says, I know my worth now. I don't chase. I attract. I don't beg. I deserve. And that energy, that unbothered peace, it drives him wild because now you're not reachable like you used to be. Now he's scrolling through old messages, looking at pictures, replaying memories in his mind. And the more he remembers, the more he regrets. That moment he rejected you, it becomes the moment he betrayed himself. Because deep down, he knew you were rare. He just thought you'd always be there. But you weren't waiting. You were building. And now every day that passes without a word from you reminds him that silence doesn't mean absence. It means evolution. You didn't disappear. You became something greater. A woman walking away in silence is not weak. She's not giving up. She's choosing herself. And there's nothing more powerful than that. A man may reject you today, but when you respond with grace, with focus, with growth, he will eventually come to see what he turned down. And when he does, it won't be your words that haunt him. It'll be your silence. Because silence is confidence. Silence is strength. Silence is the final message. I didn't need to prove myself. I already knew who I was. And when you know who you are, rejection doesn't break you. It builds you into something he'll never forget. When a woman decides to rise after being rejected, something shifts in the atmosphere. She doesn't stay in that place of heartbreak. She doesn't stay down. Instead, she begins to rebuild herself. Not out of spite, not to prove anyone wrong, but because deep inside she knows she was never meant to stay broken. She chooses to elevate. She chooses to heal. And that decision, that's the moment her glow began. Not the external kind that people notice right away, but that deep soul level transformation that radiates out of her spirit, that kind of glow, the one that comes from a healed heart, a clear mind, and newfound self-love is unforgettable. You see, when she was still caught up in the pain, when she was still confused, still looking for answers, she wasn't thinking about revenge or payback. She was just trying to survive. But then something beautiful happened. She turned inward. She stopped looking for validation from the man who turned his back on her. She stopped waiting for closure. She stopped wondering if he missed her or if he would come back. And she started focusing on the only thing she could control, herself. She cleaned up her thoughts. She worked on her habits. She built her confidence brick by brick. And every day she kept showing up for herself, the glow got stronger. It wasn't instant. It wasn't flashy, but it was real. People around her started noticing. Not just the way she dressed or walked, but the way she carried herself. There was a calmness about her, a maturity, a peace that made her magnetic. And the man who rejected her, he felt it too. Maybe he didn't understand it at first. Maybe it started as a curiosity, but over time he began to realize this woman, the one he let go, the one who he underestimated, she had become someone even he didn't recognize anymore. Someone out of reach, someone untouchable. That glow wasn't about getting him back. It was about finally becoming the woman she was always meant to be. And that's what makes it unforgettable, because the glow that comes from healing is not based on appearance. It's not about social media posts or showing off a new life. It's in the quiet strength. It's in the way she no longer reacts to chaos. It's in her silence, her poise, her purpose. That glow is wisdom gained through pain, confidence earned through solitude, beauty refined by struggle. And that kind of light, it's not temporary. It doesn't fade when the moment passes. It becomes a part of her. Now, the man who once had her full attention, who once had her heart in his hands, finds himself in a place he never expected, on the outside looking in. He sees the pictures, hears about her progress, maybe even runs into her somewhere, and he notices that sparkle in her eyes. But it's not for him anymore. It's not an invitation. It's a reflection of her evolution. He starts to understand that she's no longer the same woman who waited for his calls, who cried when he walked away. That woman evolved. She took the pain he caused and turned it into purpose. She became unforgettable, not because she tried to impress him, but because she no longer needed him to see her worth. Elevation and healing, those two things change everything. A healed woman becomes magnetic in a way that can't be explained. She attracts peace, joy, opportunities, and yes, she even draws the attention of the one who let her go. But this time is different. This time is not because she's chasing love. It's because she is love. She became the light in her own life, and that kind of light leaves an imprint. It's the kind of glow a man can't forget, no matter how far he goes or how long it's been. And the reason it haunts him, because he knows deep down she didn't just get better, she became unreachable. Not in a bitter way, but in a way that says, you can't touch me now because I've already risen above what broke me. Rejection doesn't always feel like a lesson when you're sitting in the middle of it. It hurts, it confuses you, it makes you question your worth, your value, your choices. You think to yourself, why wasn't I enough? Or what did I do wrong? But life has a funny way of using what feels like pain to move you exactly where you're supposed to be. That rejection wasn't the end, it was the beginning. And as hard as it is to believe, sometimes being pushed away is the only way you'll find the road to your purpose, your peace, and your power. Rejection is not a wall, it's a sign, a redirection. And not just for you, but for him too. When he walked away from you, maybe he thought he was making the right decision. Maybe he thought he had better options. Maybe he thought you'd never leave his heart, even if he left your life. But what neither of you realized in that moment is that this break, this painful separation, was planting the seeds for transformation. You weren't meant to stay stuck in a place where you were unappreciated. You weren't meant to keep showing up for someone who couldn't see you clearly. That rejection, that was the universe, God, whatever you believe in, saying it's time to move. It's time to grow. And sometimes we don't grow unless we're forced to. That man's rejection may have shattered you, but it also shook you awake. It made you look at yourself, your needs, your dreams, your self-respect. It made you stop settling. It opened your eyes to all the places where you were giving too much and receiving too little. And from that place of brokenness, you started to rebuild. Piece by piece, slowly but surely, you started stepping into your worth. You started realizing that love should feel like peace, not confusion. That someone who wants you won't leave you. That your value was never defined by his ability to recognize it. Now here's the other side, the part we don't always think about. That rejection, it redirected him too. See, he thought he was closing the door. He thought he was freeing himself, moving forward, exploring other paths. But what he didn't expect was the silence that followed. The space you left behind started to echo louder than he anticipated. At first, he probably felt relief. That's normal. But over time, that relief faded and it was replaced by question. Did I make a mistake? Why can't I forget her? Why does she still show up in my mind when I'm alone? Because the truth is, while you were healing and evolving, he was starting to feel the weight of what he lost. That rejection for both of you became a fork in the road. And depending on the choices you each made after that point, the future changed forever. For you, it became a journey of self-love, a lesson in strength, a reminder that you don't need to beg for love. For him, it became a memory, a reflection, a reminder of what real love looked like and how easily he let it slip through his fingers. That's the thing about redirection. It doesn't always feel good, but it's always working for your greater good. It forces you to make different decisions, to walk new paths, to become someone you never imagined you could be. And now, when he thinks of you, he doesn't just see the woman he rejected. He sees the woman he can't stop thinking about. Not because you begged him to stay, not because you made a scene, but because you honored the redirection. You let the door close and chose to rise instead. And that right there is what makes the story unforgettable. Rejection doesn't break a woman like you, it builds her. And when that happens, not only do you become stronger, you become the one that got away. There's a kind of power that doesn't come from shouting, proving, or chasing. It comes from peace, real peace, the kind of peace that shows up after the storm. When a woman no longer lets chaos define her life, that peace is magnetic. That calm energy, that glow, that presence, those things don't just affect the people around you, they hunt the ones who once had access to you and misused it. A woman walking in peace, grounded in confidence, and driven by purpose has a different kind of impact. She doesn't need to argue or explain herself. Her actions, her silence, her stability, they all speak louder than words ever could. And when a man sees that shift in you, especially after he rejected you, it shakes him. It makes him rethink everything. Because when you were emotional, when you were hurt, when you were reaching out and trying to hold on, it was easy for him to feel in control. Easy for him to assume you were stuck in the pain. But the moment you chose to focus inward instead of chasing outward, the entire dynamic changed. Suddenly, you weren't the one calling. You weren't the one asking for clarity. You weren't the one crying or posting quotes or sending long texts trying to fix what he broke. You became still. You became intentional. You became unavailable. And that's when his curiosity turned into confusion. That's when his ego started to crack. He remembers the woman who used to be soft with him, vulnerable, always willing to understand. Now he sees a woman who is secure, joyful, and focused without him. And that's where the shift happens. Men expect you to suffer quietly. They expect you to wait in the wings. But when they see you stand tall, walk proud, and breathe freely, they start to ask themselves, how did I lose her? How did she move on so fast? Was she always this powerful? What they don't realize is the power was always there. It was just buried under the weight of wanting someone who didn't see you clearly. Confidence isn't about arrogance. It's not about revenge. It's about finally knowing who you are and being unapologetic about it. When you stand in that energy, people feel it before you say a word. You walk in a room and there's peace in your stride. There's clarity in your choices. There's a glow that isn't makeup or lighting. It's healing. That's the version of you he never saw. That's the version he now can't unsee. Because when a woman stops trying to be chosen and starts choosing herself, she becomes unforgettable. And then there's purpose. That's the real game changer. When you redirect your attention from him to your goals, your passions, your growth, you stop being emotionally available to the games. You become focused on your future. You start creating a life that feels good without needing someone else to validate it. And that's when everything changes. Because the moment you live for something bigger than a man's approval is the moment you stop being affected by his absence. And trust me, that kind of detachment, it's loud. It echoes. He starts to remember what he used to mean to you. And he starts to notice what he no longer means. You don't respond the same. You don't look the same. You're not angry. You're not bitter. You're just at peace. And that is what makes him rethink everything. Not because he's suddenly worthy of your time again, but because he now sees clearly what he lost. He lost a woman who brought calm to his chaos, a woman who believed in him, a woman who loved from a pure place. And now that woman is no longer within reach. That's what your peace does. That's what your confidence does. That's what your purpose does. It rewrites the story. It makes him look back, not because he misses what was, but because he finally sees what he couldn't recognize before. You didn't have to prove anything. You just had to heal, grow, and rise. And now your presence, without even trying, makes him rethink it all. There's something unforgettable about a woman who respects herself enough to walk away from what no longer serves her. A woman who doesn't beg, doesn't plead, doesn't break down for someone who couldn't see her worth. That kind of woman doesn't need to slam doors or scream to be heard. She simply steps back, gathers her dignity, and exits with grace. And let me tell you something. Men remember her long after the drama fades, long after the new faces come and go, long after he thought he moved on. Her image lingers because she didn't fall apart. She rose. You see, it's not about being cold or heartless. It's about having boundaries. It's about knowing that no matter how deep your feelings were, you still deserve to be treated with care. And when a woman chooses to carry herself with grace, even after being rejected, that hits different. Men expect chaos when they walk away. They expect tears, blame, maybe even a fight. But when she responds with calm, with strength, when she lets go instead of clinging on, that's when the memory of her becomes etched in his mind. Because self-respect is power, and not every woman knows how to use it. In a world where people chase attention, a woman who chooses peace over performance stands out. She doesn't post indirect messages online. She doesn't try to make him jealous. She doesn't lower herself to get a reaction. She simply lets him go and lets herself grow. And that maturity, that poise, that quiet strength, it leaves an impression. Because while everyone else is doing the most to get noticed, she's becoming the kind of woman no man can forget. Not because she tried to be unforgettable, but because she chose herself. It's in the way she walks away without burning bridges, in the way she heals in private, in the way she stays kind even when she was hurt. That kind of woman carries a different energy. She's not trying to prove anything. She's not holding grudges. She just knows she deserves better, and she's not afraid to wait for it. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. And whether he admits it or not, he feels the difference. He notices the silence. He thinks about the grace she showed when she had every reason to be bitter. And it humbles him because here's the truth. Men remember the woman who didn't lose herself trying to keep him. They remember the woman who loved them deeply but still walked away when it became clear she wasn't being loved the same way in return. They remember the woman who didn't try to hurt them back but instead chose to move on with her head held high. That kind of woman, she's not easy to replace because you can find looks, you can find charm, but character, integrity, grace under pressure, that's rare. And the more time passes, the more her absence is felt. Not because she vanished in anger, but because she left behind peace. She left behind memories that weren't clouded by drama. And that's the thing. When you move on gracefully, you control the narrative. You leave no space for regretful words or messy endings. You become the woman who handled herself like a queen, even when she was handed a broken crown. And eventually, that image returns to him. again and again. So when people say men always come back, it's not always because they want another chance. Sometimes it's because they finally realized they had something real and didn't recognize it. Sometimes it's because the woman they let go left such an impact, her absence speaks louder than her presence ever could. And it's not the woman who begged or chased that they think about in the long run. It's the one who respected herself enough to let go and did it without losing her grace. That woman, she's not bitter. She's better. And that's what makes her unforgettable. There's something haunting about absence, especially the absence of a woman who once loved you with her whole heart. See, while you were there, he may have overlooked you. He may have grown used to your presence, your kindness, your patience. He may have thought your love was guaranteed, that your loyalty would last forever, that no matter how many times he pushed you away, you'd always come back. But now you're gone. Not temporarily, not emotionally disturbed and waiting, truly gone. And what's echoing in his mind now isn't what he had, it's what he lost. Men don't always process loss in the moment. They can walk away feeling confident, sure of themselves, maybe even relieved. They'll convince themselves they're better off, that the relationship ran its course, that they're free to explore and breathe. But as time passes, life slows down. The excitement fades. The noise quiets. And in that silence, the truth starts to whisper, then shout. That's when he begins to feel the ache, the pull, the reality of what he let go, because the kind of woman you were, the way you showed up, gave your all, stood by him, doesn't come around often. And now that you're no longer accessible, it hits different. He starts to think back to the little things, the way you listened when he vented, the way you remembered the things that mattered to him, the way you supported his dreams even when he didn't fully support yours. He remembers your laughter, your softness, your presence. And suddenly it all feels like a ghost, not because you're playing games or trying to get in his head, but because your absence has become louder than your presence ever was. That's what happens when a woman who gave genuine love disappears. You don't forget her. You feel her in everything that reminds you of what peace once felt like. He may scroll through old messages, revisit old pictures, even past places that bring memories rushing back. But the difference now is you're no longer reachable. You're not sitting around wondering if he misses you. You're not sending the late night texts. You're not hoping he'll come back. You've accepted what is and you've chosen to move forward. And that reality, that's what haunts him. Because now he's chasing a memory he helped destroy. Not intentionally, maybe, but through neglect, through selfishness, through not appreciating you while you were still his. What he's haunted by is not just your love, but your growth, because you didn't fall apart. You didn't lose yourself. You elevated, you healed, you became someone even more valuable, more confident, more radiant. And that version of you is no longer available to him. That's the part that truly stings, because while he was taking you for granted, you were learning how to let go. While he was looking around thinking he could do better, you were preparing to walk away with grace. And now that you're not trying to come back, now that you've made peace with his absence, he's stuck battling with the weight of his own decisions. He doesn't miss what he had, he misses what he destroyed. He misses the woman who saw the best in him when he didn't see it himself. He misses the version of himself that existed when he was loved by you, because your love didn't just touch his heart. It lifted him. Even if he didn't realize it at the time, and now that you're gone, there's no one else who loves like you. No one else who makes him feel that safe, that seen, that real. That's what keeps him up at night. So now, when he thinks of you, it's not just with longing, it's with regret. Because you weren't just another woman, you were the woman. The one who gave your all. The one who would have stayed if only he had given you a reason to. And now, you're just a memory. One that won't fade. One that won't be replaced. Because when a man loses a real woman, he doesn't just lose love. He loses the future he never knew he needed until it was too late.